Okay, so more goodies. Guess what we can do? We can control all of these. So do you remember when we talked about diagnosing misfires, right? We would do injector balance tests and all that kind of stuff. Well, there's another thing called cylinder contribution testing. All right, this is where we take it and we kill a cylinder and we look to see how much RPM drops from that cylinder. If a bunch drops, it was contributing. If nothing drops, it wasn't. There's your dead cylinder. Well, we have the ability to control these, and it says fuel injectors disable, yes or no. That's our choice. So we can shut this off and see if the cylinder goes dead. If the cylinder goes dead, the fuel injector was working. If the cylinder stays the same and doesn't make a change, then there's something wrong with that cylinder. It's not the injector. Well, it could be the injector. Let me rephrase that. Okay? So yes, the injector didn't make a difference. It doesn't say anything about fuel. Right? So remember when we were doing the test where we pulsed the fuel injector and watched the fuel pressure drop? That would be the next thing. Right? So we sit down and we have, we shut that injector off, idle gets worse. Turn it back on. Go to the next one, cylinder 3. We do it, it still doesn't change. Well, now we did it, and we know that's the dead cylinder because it's not happening. But now what are we going to do? We're going to do two things. First thing we're going to do is we're going to spray that and see if fuel passes through using one of those timing devices. Get the fuel pressure up, take it, we see it come out. What if we go and nothing happens? Well, we found our clogged fuel injector. If fuel comes out, now we are going to look at spark and see if we have spark. And finally, compression. Because that could be spraying fuel and have spark and still be Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now let's see what we got. We got this one. What's that give us? Well, that shows we got a map sensor. We can't do nothing with that. Throttle position, we can't do nothing with that. Coolant temperature, we can't do nothing with that. Mass airflow, we can't do nothing with that. Idle air control, that we can do something with, right? So we see our PCM. We have a high and a low and a high and a low. We have the ability to control idle speed with an idle air control valve, right? We have a bypass passageway that goes around the throttle plate. To that, it opens up, idle goes up, it closes up, idle comes down. We can go in and that gets done by percentage. So we can take it, we can open the idle air control up more and more and more and more. And what happens? The idle goes up. We can go the other way, bring the idle down. Right? That proves a couple things. One, that the idle air control operates, that the idle speed can be controlled by it. And if we have a vehicle that has a stalling issue and we can see that that thing can play with the idle, maybe that leads us to a dirty throttle plate or something along those lines that causes that to be skewed, or a vacuum leak or stuff like that. Right? Kind of cool. Let's see what we got next. We got this one. What is this? An air pump. That's a fun one, right? So we got a secondary air injection relay. We have a secondary air injection pump. And we have a solenoid over here. So we look at this and we see the computer controls this side, pulls it to ground. Here's our fuse that goes to it. We have a fuse over here that feeds 30, comes out on 87, goes down to both things. Right? So we take it, we do this, we get our Hoover vacuum cleaner sound that comes out of this, and this thing is a passageway that opens up. Right? So this thing, and then this thing is a solenoid valve that allows that air pump to move into the engine like it's supposed to, or the exhaust or whatnot. Kind of cool if the secondary air pump doesn't work. Okay. What else we got? We got this one. So we got two things on this one. We can control it all. So here we got our fuse. Here we got our PCM. Here we have our evaporative emission vent solenoid. Ground controlled to Major Tom. Now ground controlled. So power comes in, ground's controlled here. We can operate this, close it off or open it, and we now can open and close the vapor pathway from the gas tank. Over here we have our canister purge control valve. Same fuse. We control this, and we can look to see if vapor start entering the engine, how it runs. Or maybe we could shut it off and discover that that thing's stuck open or something along those lines, right? What happens? What do you think happens if we open that? Well, the gasoline vapors flow into the engine. What should happen? The car should go rich, right? The oxygen sensor should see that fuel going in, and we should see a result by it. So it gives us the ability to prove that device operational. On this side, we have our exhaust gas recirculation valve. And this is an electronic EGR valve. And we can see we got 5-volt reference and ground. Well, what's this? This is the positioning sensor portion of the EGR valve, right? So just like a TPS, here's our pintle position. It's a potentiometer, right? 5-volt reference on one side, ground on the other. As the little piston inside there, the pintle position moves up and down. This moves up and down, and we can see it operating. Over here, we have the control. So here's 12 volts. Here's ground. Looks very much like a relay kind of thing. We can take it, and we can open it up in percentages, open it up more and more and more. What's that let us do? Well, let's say we have a car that's setting exhaust gas recirculation codes. If we take this and open it, what happens to engine vacuum if we open an EGR valve? Right? EGR valve opens, it takes the lid off of our vacuum, right? Our big vacuum canister behind the throttle plate. That creates an opening that goes into the exhaust, and as a result, the idle gets stumbly. If we can open that up fully and that engine almost stalls, boom, we just proved our EGR passages are clear. If we open it all the way and the engine does not stall, then we can presume that those passageways are plugged with carbon, and that's our problem, and we can clean them all out. All done with the computer. And we got one more, I think. Nope. That's it. Okay, so the next thing you'll see is those things we just talked about in action on the vehicle.